It is January 1st, 2362. Thanks to the invention of the Shaw Fukukawa translite engine, humanity for the first time will leave the confines of the solar system and begin to spread across the stars. By the year 2390, 210 worlds would have been successfully colonized, leading to the creation of the inner colonies. In the year 2412, a new wave of colonization would begin, leading to the creation of the outer colonies. And by 2490, humanity would have well over 800 worlds under the leadership of the United Earth government. However, even spread across the stars, humanity was still unable to leave behind conflict in the solar system. Due to spreading dissent among the outer colony worlds, a movement began to form seeking independence from the UEG and the inner colonies. The more extremist members of this movement began to form a militant group that became known as the Insurrection, or Innies, and began hit-and-run attacks on both the United Nations Space Command and the Colonial Military Authority, leading to a brutal conflict that spread throughout the outer colonies. And by 2524, the Insurrection have even spread to some of the inner colonies. To help combat against the Insurrection, the UNSC's Black Ops and Intelligence Gathering Division, the Office of Naval Intelligence, founded a special operations group that would remove this threat once and for all. This group would be comprised of highly skilled and trained individuals, utilizing equipment and training that would put an end to the Insurrection. This program was authorized and began in the year 2511. However, in the year 2525, the members of this program would become something greater to all of humanity.
On the blood of our fathers, on the blood of our sons, we swore to uphold the covenant.
In another part of the galaxy, an alliance of various alien races have been coming together under a religious doctrine that is based on worshipping the technology of an ancient galactic-spanning civilization. After being founded in the year 852 between two races, the honorable and militaristic Singeli and the nomadic and technologically advanced Sanshayun. This alien alliance, this covenant, began a grand quest across the galaxy, with religious fervor in hand. Their goal, to seek the mantle of this forerunner race and go on a great journey to reach godhood. The Covenant is a caste-based society, with each race fulfilling a different role within this alliance. From religious leaders to soldiers, engineers to laborers, every member species had a role to fill, and any race was free to join the Covenant, whether by choice or by conquest, as long as the tenets of their religion was adhered to. This would all change in the year 2525, when the Covenant and humanity would meet each other for the first time on a planet called Harvest, the furthest colony in human-controlled space. When these two galactic regional powers met, the three ruling leaders of the Covenant, known as the Hierarchs, met with an oracle in order to start a new age for the Covenant. However, this simple and joyous occasion turned to horror, as the three Hierarchs learned a terrible truth about humanity. This revelation would lead them to declare humanity as an affront to their gods, and thus must be purged from the face of existence. On April 20th, 2525, the Human Covenant War began.
Your destruction is the will of the gods, and we are their instrument.
The technology of the Covenant was beyond anything that humanity had up to that point. From their slipspace capabilities, to their starships, to their small arms, to their body armor, the UNSC and its plethora of military forces were outgunned on every level. Initially, the UNSC had some limited success against Covenant forces in both space and on the ground. This was thanks in part to the UNSC's greatest naval commander, Vice Admiral Preston Cole, who gained knowledge and insight into how both outsmart and outmaneuver the Covenant Navy. Some of his tactics and knowledge even became standard combat procedure against the alien onslaught later in the war. Even with all the resources and manpower at his command, the Vice Admiral was only able to achieve an overwhelming victory by numbers only, ideally a ratio of 3 to 1. While costly, this would allow him to reclaim the planet of Harvest from the Covenant in 2526. It was here that the true horror of the Covenant's war on humanity was seen firsthand. Since the hierarchs have declared all of humanity as an affront to their religion, their existence had to be wiped off the face of the galaxy. To ensure their removal, the Covenant Navy would commit a maneuver called glassing, in which one of their warships takes position over a planet's surface and unleashes a destructive beam of plasma, turning the surface into molten glass and destroying a planet's entire biosphere. Even with Cole's empiric victory at reclaiming Harvest, this single action would come at the cost of numerous outer colony worlds being attacked and thus glassed by the Covenant.
You have been called upon to serve. You will be trained, and you will become the best we can make of you. You will be the protectors of Earth and all her colonies.
By 2536, the outer colonies were all but a memory, and the Covenant's push into the inner colonies began. With humanity's most populated and developed worlds now under threat, the UNSC had come to realize that they are now in a defensive battle against the alien onslaught. And because of this, all options and resources were now on the UNSC's table. This included a group of super soldiers that would become the symbols of human defiance, so much so that the death of one was to be covered up. They are the Spartans. Originally created in 2511, with their first class starting their training in 2517, the Spartan II project was an evolution of an older super soldier project known as Orion. The brainchild of one Dr. Catherine Halsey, a scientific prodigy within Section 3 of ONI, sought to create the ultimate protectors of humanity by making some controversial decisions. One of which was that instead of using volunteers for the project, they would kidnap 75 children between the ages of 7 and 8 and train them to become soldiers. Trained on the planet Reach to be the best of the best, they would become the ultimate soldier. The next decision by Dr. Halsey was to boost their physical capabilities with a biological augmentation that would increase their reaction speed, turn their bones as hard as metal, and a high likelihood of killing these child conscripts. In the end, 33 survived the augmentation process, with the rest dying or being physically handicapped. The third and final part to make them the protectors of humanity was a set of powered armor designed by Dr. Halsey herself, Mjolnir. With all these skills, training, and hardware, they were the most effective weapon that the UNSC had against the Covenant on the ground, though they were not originally created to fight against the Alien Alliance. The Spartans were such a threat that the Covenant called them demons. Each Spartan had a certain specialty that made them lethal individually, and invincible when working together. Spartans such as Frederick 104, Kelly 087, and Linda 058 were capable of completing missions that would be considered impossible by UNSC High Command. However, one Spartan in particular stood above his peers ever since they started training. Spartan John 117. Known for his leadership capabilities and his almost supernatural luck, he is one of the few Spartans that has earned the designation of hyper-lethal by the UNSC.
Make the units better with new technology. Make more of them, and make them cheaper.
While the Spartan IIs were incredibly effective against the Covenant, there were only 33 of them. Thus, Colonel James Ackerson sought to mass-produce Spartans in order to help hold back the inevitable annihilation of humanity. Faking the death of the Spartan II Kurt 026 to train the next generation of Spartans, and using the secret planet called Onyx as their training ground. The Spartan IIIs were made up of orphaned children whose parents and worlds were destroyed by the Covenant. There, they trained in 300-strong companies and were deployed in massive suicidal attacks on critical Covenant infrastructure behind the front lines. Alpha Company destroyed a Covenant shipyard with Operation Prometheus with no survivors. Beta Company destroyed a Covenant refinery with Operation Torpedo with 2 survivors. To help reduce the loss and to maximize their lethality, Gamma Company was split and sent into various combat theaters across human space, unlike the prior Spartan III companies. Aside from those Spartan IIIs that were sent on the suicide missions, those that stood out during their training were taken out of the standard classes and were put a part of special squads and teams that saw various deployments in both human and Covenant space. Cortana, what's our status?
Same as ever. We're in trouble.
Even with all the genius of Admiral Cole, the lethality of the Spartan IIs, and the sacrifices of the Spartan IIIs, by the year 2552, humanity was pushed back to the fortress world of Reach, the most heavily defended world in human space behind Earth itself. Oni analysts determined that if Reach was found and destroyed by the Covenant, that Earth, and thus humanity, would be annihilated within a few years. A last-ditch plan was drawn up to secure some kind of bargaining power over the Covenant, by kidnapping their leadership. This Operation Red Flag was deemed to be the last hope for humanity by the UNSC High Command, and thus only the Spartan IIs were deemed to be the only ones who could complete this near-suicidal mission. However, the Covenant are going to continue their advance into human space, getting closer and closer to Earth.
Chief told me once that no soldier should be honored for doing what's expected.